Hello, I am filming a Q&A video today of my experience of walking 800 kilometers along the Camino Frances in 2025. And while I answer some questions, I'm also going to do some basic gear care post-walk. So the first thing on the list today is to wash both my rain jacket and the crossbody bag that I used, because both of them are pretty stinky and filthy. So they are going in the washing machine with 2 capfuls of tech wash on a cold wash, and then I'll spray them with waterproof repellent afterwards. Simple as. More or less all in the machine. Okay, now I need to figure out what the first question is. So I'm going to go through some of the more technical or straightforward questions first, and then get into the more philosophical ones as we go. Or maybe I'll mix them up, we'll see. But first, easy question, is where did we fly to and from? We flew into Biarritz and out of Santiago itself, where you finish. And that was really convenient because there were direct flights from Dublin to both. Flying into Biarritz is a really common way to get to Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port, and there's a train that goes up to Saint-Jean, and beautiful train ride as well if you get to do it. And then Santiago, what was really cool about getting to the airport there was that we took just a regular bus, city bus, and the route that the bus goes out intersects with the route that pilgrims walk in, and so we got to see people walking in as we were heading to the airport, and there were some people that we recognized walking in, and it was really cool to be like, oh, they made it, or they basically made it. That was really, really cool. The question that I got the most often, and I guess it's not that surprising, is accommodation, booking accommodation. Did we have it all booked? Did we feel the need to pre-book? Was it really busy? All the usual Camino accommodation scare. And it's a tricky one. We did not pre-book, really. We met people who had pre-booked their whole walk. Most we did was sometimes the night before we would book the next day. So this evening I'd book tomorrow. But on a whole, we tried to balance that by staying in a lot of municipal albergues, which are the county council hostels. And you're not able to book those ones. So they are very basic, but you're paying a tenner a night for a municipal albergue at most. So for a tenner, you're getting a bed, you're getting hot water. Quite often there's a real sense of community in them. So we really enjoyed staying in the municipals, and we stayed in a few private ones as well, and I think the most we paid was €22 each for a night. But most of the time it was somewhere between €10 and €15 for a bed each. And it's tricky not to get into the the bed race mentality. I've had a lot more experience of this than my dad. I don't think he would mind me saying that I think he found it much harder to just embrace not knowing than I did. We didn't pre-book the last 5 days, the last 100k, basically from Sarria into Santiago. And I think if we could have booked it, my dad would have, just to have the peace of mind. But we stayed in municipals, and we were walking so early in the day anyway that we would get there before they even opened. And quite often, most evenings, when we'd be relaxing in the kind of communal area, I'd see people coming in at 4 or 5 p.m. and still getting a bed. So I understand why people want the safety and the comfort of knowing it's all pre-booked, and there's definitely a comfort in that. Even when Carl and I were walking trails here in Ireland, long distance trails here, ones that we knew were going to be difficult to camp along, it's taxing, it's stressful on your head not knowing where you're going to stay. So I really do get why people want it. A downside I see to pre-booking is that you can't take rest days as easily. You can't kind of customize your Camino to the lived experience that you're going through. So like if you sprained your ankle and wanted to just spend 3 days resting it in the one place, a lot of people we knew who had pre-booked then had to take a bus every day, and we're just going to have to skip those sections. And like maybe you don't have the time to give yourself 3 days off to recover an ankle in your grand plan. Anyway, but I think personally I'd prefer to be able to take the 3 days in one place, or choose where I want to rest for 3 days, even up ahead along the trail, and be able to stay there and then continue my walk. But we also met a lot of people who had travelled literally from the other side of the world to do this, and so I understand why they had pre-booked so much. It's a really big experience, but I think for me going forward, I would still do it the way I've done it. We always found a bed, always. So no sleeping in bus shelters or anything like that. Yeah. And it was also interesting hearing from people who are volunteering in albergues that like sometimes there's just like waves, and so you might have a day where like one guy was volunteering at a municipal albergue, and he said that he like the 2 days before they had 10 beds empty that night. Like people just didn't come to fill it. The day after, they didn't even make it through the whole queue that were waiting to stay there. And then on our day, they made it through the whole queue and there were still a couple of beds empty. And he said that was the perfect balance, because it meant that there was probably going to be a full albergue, more or less, but nobody left wanting. So I think also if you find yourself in a really like busy kind of wave of people, if you can afford to take a rest day or push and walk half a day more, or just to do a half a day, just get out of sync, you can find a much more kind of quieter pocket. And that actually reminds me that you can walk outside of the set stages of the guidebooks and of the info sheets that they give you in the like tourist offices. Those stages are often framed around kind of infrastructure, so it might have you finishing in a town where there is a big municipal albergue or a lot of restaurants and whatever, but you can also kind of customize your stages yourself. If you just look up what villages in between have the facilities that you need, and they are often a lot quieter. So we, on several occasions, would either stop 5k early or walk 5k more, just to be out of sync and have a more peaceful night. Face wash is done. I am now going to spray them. This bag was not originally waterproof, or wasn't sold as a waterproof bag, so I'm not expecting it to make it waterproof, but you never know. A lot of my clothes now have a stain on like the front right side, because that's where my camera was clipped on my bag, and now everything kind of has this like dirt. So I might wash it again, in a few weeks and see if it comes out. But overall, this is the jacket that has survived everything I've thrown at it so far. So let's re-waterproof it for the 100th time and pray that it continues to serve me well. Next up, I am gonna wash my sleeping bag. I had it in a dry bag, waterproof bag. You can buy, this is a cheap synthetic sleeping bag. You can buy down wash for your sleeping bags and your down jackets, if you need to, if they are worthwhile bags. You can also buy special sleeping bag wash for synthetic bags. I am just going to be using non-bio detergent. So I am going to be putting mine on a bit of a higher wash than normal. I'm putting it on the Allergy Care at 60 degrees to hopefully just kind of kill off anything that might be on it. And as I throw my sleeping bag in the wash, I realised that there is one more thing I want to talk about in regards to albergues and this communal living. Bedbugs are a thing. 99.99% of all albergues do a really, really good job of trying to keep the place clean. If you encounter them, it's not necessarily the fault of the albergue. When you have 100 people going through every night, it's impossible. It's a really, really hard thing to control. And you yourself can end up picking them up and bringing them to the next place and not realizing until you get there. And though you yourself might be a really clean person, you then can end up covered in bites. I am so relieved to say that my dad and I did not get any bed bugs on this trip. In one of our last nights in an albergue, I remember getting up, and as I was packing up my stuff, there was a couple staying kind of beside us, and she got up and her back was covered in bites. And so I was a little cautious, weary, but we were fine. All our stuff was fine. Bed bugs, the only real way to treat them is to wash your stuff really, really hot, or put your stuff in a freezer in Ziploc bags for a few days. It really, really sucks if it happens. But don't necessarily take it out on the people who run the place. They're really doing their best. It's just an unfortunate part of this style of traveling. And like, that was literally the only time I saw somebody with bites, and that was over a month in. So, you know, they really, really work very hard to keep everywhere clean and fresh and bug free. An interesting question, or a question that got made me think, was, is the trail mainly on-road or off-road walking? So it is definitely off-road walking, but I don't know if I would call physical ground a trail, at least in comparison to what we call a trail in Ireland. So 99% of the time we are walking on the Camino Frances, we are on a wide, compacted, like light gravel track, and you were properly separated from the road. There might be a couple of farmers that use it, or the like trail maintenance crew driving through, but for the most part you were separate from traffic, and it was really, really, really impressive infrastructure. But it definitely felt like a track or a route or a way. Didn't quite hit the trail in my head, or the paths that I use the word trail for. I don't know if I would use it in this same way. I even noticed that actually as I was writing my journal of the trip, that I was very hesitant to use the word trail unless that day was particularly trail-ish. And that leads me very nicely into the next question of, what shoes did you bring? Did you wear trail runners, and did you bring multiple pairs? All kind of fished into that. As I have said, I brought a pair of Hoka Speed Goats. I only brought one pair, and as I also said in my gear video, I think like for 80% of it, you could do it in road runners or like hybrid shoes. What is a little strange about the Camino is there are a few days scattered throughout it, which are what I would call a trail, and much more outdoorsy and kind of out there and hard for the average person. But they are somewhat few and far between. A lot of it is very accessible, doable walking. And for a lot of it, you don't then need a super technical shoe. You definitely want to get a proper trail runner or proper walking shoe of some description, but it doesn't need to be like super soft rubber for grip or anything. I only brought one pair of trail runners, and I brought one pair of sandals. Admittedly, I probably should have bought a second pair of trail runners. Like, I should have thrown away the ones I had and changed into a new pair before the end. Like the ones that I wore about 10 days out, I was like, these are definitely dead, and I can kind of feel it in my legs now that I wore those shoes for too long. But I got away with it so far, touch wood. So I only brought one. I said this to a friend who's a runner, the other day. They were a little bit shocked and horror at the idea of just wearing one pair of shoes like that for so long, because it does have possibly negative effects to not be able to kind of vary your footwear and vary wear patterns and all that on you. But anyway, we're getting off track. I brought a Hoka Speed Goat, and I wore just the one pair of shoes for 6 weeks, more or less. Yeah, not gonna lie, not entirely sure how useful these videos are for you, but I really appreciate the motivation to actually get these little bits done. So thank you for coming along with me. So you see here, there's like a hole in it, and you see the texture in the bag, the like grid pattern. That's to stop tears like this spreading, but it will eventually spread. So I'm just going to patch it with some leftover Gore-Tex gear aid that I have. It's probably overkill for what I'm doing, but it's also some patching material that I have. So I'm just going to use what I have and go from there. And I'm going to show you a sneaky tip of mine. I never do the most beautiful cutting jobs, do I? Anyway, I'm going to show you a sneaky tip. So a really good final touch for when you're gluing something and repairing is heat. So this is some not quite boiling water that I am hopefully not steaming up the lens too much with. But this will hopefully make the glue that bit more kind of adhere to the bag. Kind of like doing an iron-on patch, you know? I haven't done one of those since I was a kid, but I'm sure we all remember them. Do you think that can hold together that whole corner? Only one way to find out, I guess. One final practical question was generally kind of overview of costs. How much did the whole thing cost? I would say on average it was €15 a night for a bed, anywhere from 10 to 20 euro, but let's say 15. It's 15 a night for a pilgrim dinner, so that was eating out every night, getting a 3-course meal. Again, some were more, some were less. And also spending a tenner a day on breakfast, lunch. You can do it a lot cheaper than that. So that's what, 40 euro for 34 days, 1,360 euro. So that's say 1,500 euro per person. And then, you know, give or take, you can definitely do it a lot cheaper than that. You can buy pasta every night and cook it yourself. But it is made to be super convenient. So yeah, you can spend a lot less, you can spend a lot more. The pilgrim menu is normally, it's simple food that can be made every night for a lot of people. And so if you want to eat a bit fancier, it's definitely possible, but you're going to be spending a bit more. But no, it was perfect for what we wanted. As a vegetarian, it was a little difficult, but as long as you're willing to be flexible and accommodating, people will also try their best by you. So the first more philosophical question that I want to go for, and it's going to be a little bit practical, a little bit philosophical, is if I was to walk one route again, because I've now done 2 routes, the Camino Frances and the Camino del Norte, which one would I choose? It was 10 years between me walking the 2 routes. I did the Camino del Norte in 2015. I did the Camino Frances in 2025. The Camino del Norte was my first ever experience of long distance walking, and I have done a lot since then. So that trail was really my introduction to through walking, and a really, really, really big learning experience. And then coming around this time, I knew what to expect in the broad strokes, you know? So very, very difficult to compare. A lot has changed in the last 10 years. The Camino is more popular than ever. And they both attract or have different like pros and cons. One guy that I talked to, he didn't like the Camino del Norte because there was too much industrial walking for him, going in and out of the cities. And I think that is probably partially because it doesn't get the same funding and development that the Camino Frances has had for as long as it's had, you know, because it just hasn't had the footfall. I absolutely loved the Del Norte. And to actually get to an answer for this question, I think if I'm focusing on the again, which one would I walk again, I would do the Camino del Norte again. Because I'm really curious how much my memory is right, and how much I'm in love with that trail just because it was my first long trail. Which leads very nicely into my next question, which was, what was the thing that you enjoyed the most that you never expected / planned? Which is a good question, Ian, thank you. And I'm gonna say it was the people. So one of my personal biggest kind of apprehensions going into the Camino Frances was knowing that it is a really busy trail. And I am used to walking in solitude, or near solitude. And so I was worried that the volume of people was going to be really, really overwhelming. And in some moments it was, but the people also really made the walk, which feels very cliche to say. But it was the amazing people that we met that made it such an amazing experience. So I'm really grateful and glad that we met the people that we did and had all the funny experiences that we had. Yeah, they were the people was probably the best part of the whole trail for me, which is not something that I expected to say. I'm sounding very antisocial, but you know, yeah, the people. I really hoped that the culture, like I was kind of seeing it as like a cultural tour of all these incredible like old historical buildings and like amazing architecture and stuff, and that was even more amazing than I expected. Scrolling through the questions just there, I realised there was one more on albergues that I haven't touched on. It's funny, like talking so much about the albergues, but sleep is really important when you want to walk 25k every day. It was basically how were the nights for sleeping, noise from snoring, etc. Worried face. I am a very light sleeper, and so I think the key is that you aim for quantity over quality. I did not have a full night's sleep until I made it home again. And that's just something you kind of have to roll with. You definitely need an eye mask. You definitely need earplugs. I had both and they helped a lot. They're not going to be perfect. That might be a reason why you end up looking to go for more private albergues than the public ones, because you're going to be in smaller rooms. So you would hopefully be less likely to be in a room with a snorer. But it's just so common. Like, people are people. There's going to be a lot of snoring. Yeah, so my sleep really suffered. Because I track everything on a Garmin, because it has, I guess, years of data to compare to. I am still recovering, sleep and recovery-wise. Sleep-wise in that way, which was really interesting to see. And I'm home 10 days. But I've slept like a log since I got home, so at least there's that. Yeah, just be prepared, try and find yourself some good quality earplugs, and bring a couple of pairs. And it's the best you can do. Good eye mask as well. Somebody thinking of bringing their 19-year-old daughter, what part would I recommend? Depends how outdoorsy they are. I think there's something really nice about getting a certificate or feeling like you have completed a section. Not everybody is that way drawn, but for somebody who's 19, maybe I'm being very generalizing, but if you want something that's going to excite them and inspire them to kind of do it again, possibly the idea of a certificate at the end is really beneficial. And so there are a couple of ways that you can facilitate that. To get a Compostela in Santiago, you have to walk at least 100 kilometers or cycle 200k. And so it means a lot of people start in Sarria and walk to Santiago. And that is the busiest section. It is very well catered for, but it is very busy. If you can start a bit further back, those extra, like the whole province of Galicia is amazing. if you can afford to do that much. There is also a halfway point completion certificate that you can get in Shagun, which was also very pretty, and is, I think, a different way of like celebrating that you've achieved a certain amount. So if you could do a week or more before then and possibly get that certificate, that's a different way of kind of incorporating that. And then you can also walk from Santiago out to Finisterre and onto Muxia, which is its own kind of pilgrimage to the end of the world, to the ocean, which a lot of people who've walked the Camino will continue on to do. And yeah, lots of different ways of incorporating these things. If you are in Ireland specifically, you could do the Boyne Valley Camino or the Kerry Camino. The Camino that you can collect stamps on and prove that you've completed that section. And then you can go down to A Coruña, which is like the northwestern port in Galicia, and walk down from there and do the Inglés Camino, the English way. I've not done that yet, but I am very tempted to do it soon. In general though, like so much of it is about the people you meet and the fantastic days that you have, that whatever section you pick, you're still going to have that kind of experience because it's that communal goal and shared hurt and effort, the communal trauma and achievement, and you'll get that along any section. So I think, yeah, no matter what bit you do, you're going to have a great time. Okay, I think this is going to be my final question. Was it just a walk, or were you able to connect to some pilgrimage aspect? I think for me, in this particular route, it was seeing other people who are not outdoor people, but having this dream of walking the Camino. That was what I think inspired or showed flickers and snippets of pilgrimage to me. I think if you don't try and kind of connect to the people around you and have those conversations, it can be just a walk. It was seeing the courage of everyday people doing something extraordinary. Walking has in many ways become my job in different aspects, and so for me to go out and walk 808 kilometers is just something I can do. It was the communal connection and experiences that I think elevated it. And I was very aware of how lucky I was. I'd sit out in the evenings and listen to everybody and watch everybody, and especially the people hobbling around, trying to care for their feet. At one point my dad asked, why did I think everybody that we met was so nice? Was it that the Camino itself attracts a certain mindset of person? Or was it that it just provided a place for people to be their best selves? Or was it that everybody else around you being kind and being open inspired people to be that way themselves? And I think it's a little bit of all of that. I think the pilgrimage shined through in the small acts of kindness that everybody would pay everybody else. I remember helping a girl bandage her blisters and holding her foot very close to my face, and she said that she didn't know if any of her close friends from home would ever be that close to her feet, never mind a stranger. But that's kind of the beauty of this space. You're vulnerable and people see you being vulnerable, and you take care of each other. I think that's where the pilgrimage was most visible for me. There was a lot of people there walking for a lot of different reasons, and I truly do think it helped them find answers, because you can be a lot more open and honest with people that feel like strangers. Yeah, it's a beautiful experience that I really wish that everybody can have someday. Okay, I'm gonna have to leave it there. because it is getting late and I need to have this video edited and out in the world. Yeah, so I'll see you in the next one. Thank you to our patrons that make this possible. And yeah, okay, happy hiking. Bye. Hello. Hello. This mic is very close to my face, but I don't know where else to clip it. I didn't really anticipate just how much of my messy utility room you were going to see. Anyway, I pretty much just... Oh, geez, that's gonna blow all over the camera. Let's try this, shall we? Hello, and welcome to Saint-Jean-de-Pied-de-Port, the French side of the Pyrenees Mountains. And I guess I'm recording this on day 0 of the Camino Frances. Tomorrow we're going to walk